Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the government and legal correspondent. And today we have three guests who are going to be talking about the expansion at the St. Croix County Government Center. First, we have County Administrator Ken Witt. The uniformed gentleman is Sheriff Scott Knudson, and we have District Attorney Karl Anderson. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I thought we'd do before we start talking about the expansion plans and the project is if you could just say, it's self-explanatory what the sheriff does and the district attorney, but just tell us how long you've been in St. Croix County and what you do. Ken, you might need a little bit of explanation for your job. Administrator is a nice generic term, but I know that I know what you do, but maybe our viewers don't. So if you could start, Ken.
Sure. I'm the county administrator. I've been with the county for about 6 years, 1 year as the county administrator and the previous 5 as the assistant county administrator. So county administration is the overall management, managing the budget for the county, the $110 million budget, managing the 650 employees the county has, and coordinating everything that has to come together to make the county work.
Okay. And Sheriff, how long have you been on the force and how long have you been sheriff?
Thanks, Jamie. I have been with the sheriff's office since the end of 1995, full-time 1996, January 1st. I've been sheriff since 2018. And again, my whole career has been with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office, starting in the jail. And currently under the umbrella of the sheriff, we have our communication center, jail division, patrol, investigation, and courts. So we have about 120 staff with the office, 87 of those sworn. So.
Okay, so your 120 staff fall into that 650 overall employees of the county.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and then last, not necessarily least, but an important part of our, again, justice system is the district attorney's office. Karl, how about you? How long have you been with the county and in your position?
So I've been with the county going on 6 years. I've been the district attorney for about 1 year. Basically, a district attorney is the chief prosecutor for the county. Even though we're county prosecutors, all the prosecutors were technically state employees, but there's 22 in our office currently.
Okay, thank you for introducing yourselves. And now, so let's get on to the subject, which is the expansion of the St. Croix County Government Center. And I know in talking about this project, we're going to be referencing a little history because our studio here for this cable news show is in the basement of the old courthouse, which housed 2 judges, and it was effectively a government center here until 1993. Is that right, Ken?
Yep, that's right. That was the second of the 3 courthouses in Hudson.
Right. I don't know if anybody goes back to practicing law prior to this building that I'm in now, because that would be, I think, early 60s. But so why is the county looking to expand the government center that's on Carmichael Road and was built in 1993?
Sure. Like I mentioned, this is the 3rd government center building we've had, and we've had to expand at different points in time. And I think we're at that point now as the 2nd fastest growing county in Wisconsin. As the population increases, so do the demand for services from that increasing population. So we're seeing increases in service demands in public protection, in the judicial. And I think our facilities department has done really well to extend the life of this building. It was originally projected for 20 years, so we've well exceeded that. But it's at that point now where we're due for another expansion, a new building or an expansion based upon the population growth.
And what size parcel does the current government center sit on? I know it's a large space, certainly more than what's developed so far. So what is that space?
Sure, it's roughly right around 70 acres. So we have plenty of space to expand on here. And one of the requirements of the county courthouse and the jail is it must reside within the county seat. So we have to be within the city of Hudson limits. So we have enough space here that we should be able to take care of the county's needs for at least another 150 years, like we've already been in existence.
Let's cross our fingers. I don't expect to see that, but myself. But anyway, how did you determine how much space you're going to need for this new expansion?
Yeah, we've been doing, as government does, multiple studies over many years. So we found a study as far back as 2012, where they were really looking at the facility and determining that we've exceeded our space. We've done a number of things to extend the life of the building since 2012. We moved a lot of the services that were in Hudson over to New Richmond when we acquired some additional property over there. The ADRC, Veteran Services, amongst other HHS programming that we've ended up moving. So we've done the best we can to extend the life of it. But as we've sat down and met with all the departments and talked about their current needs and their future projected needs, we've sort of come up with a plan of how much space we would need in order to serve us for the next 20 to 30 years.
Okay, so you're talking about almost 30 years that you've been in that building. And like you said, the projections were it would adequately have space for the services for about 20, but you've needed to move some things out and tried to extend the need for an expansion. But it sounds like we're at that point where it's time.
Yeah, if you put it into perspective, in 1993, the population of the county was at 50,000 people. Our 2020 census puts it at over 93,000. So we've nearly doubled in size since this building was built. So if you just look at that metric alone, you can tell that it's probably time.
Okay, well, we're going to get talking about the project and its impact on services, but I guess another perspective is in the building I'm in now, which was the old courthouse, you had 2 courtrooms for 2 judges, and the new government center in 1993, now obviously looking to expand that, but it has 4 courtrooms and plus a court commissioner. And so it was planned for expansion. Now we've expanded into 4 judges. So let's talk about this expansion. What is being expanded? Obviously, I've already started talking about the courtroom. So why don't you start there and fill us in?
Sure. So the courtrooms, we're looking at expanding to 7 courtrooms. So similar to what they did in 1993 when they added more courtrooms and they had judges so that they could grow into it, is what we would look at doing with this current expansion. So 7 courtrooms is what we're looking at. Also additional space for juries in order to keep them more segregated from the general population in the building. Additional space for the sheriff's office, for expansion of their needs, and then also space for some of the programming. Some of the things that we ended up moving to New Richmond were largely only able to serve in the New Richmond area. So what we want to be able to do is provide space to have employees work out of Hudson, providing some of those same services, so we can come to the population instead of making the population come to us.
Okay. Well, now let's get into, obviously, the government center provides the criminal justice, but there's a lot of human services that go along too. And so that's one area that has probably the biggest location is over in New Richmond. Is that what you're saying? You're trying to move some of that stuff back to Hudson?
Yeah, and I don't think what we're going to do is move entire departments back, but what we want to do is actually split the workforce and bring the workforce to where the people are that need the service to the greatest extent possible. So we want to provide the best service to our constituents. And this is one of the ways that we can do it.
Okay, well, let's start with, I guess, our prosecutor, DA Karl Anderson. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how this expansion would impact your office?
Sure. So as I said, we currently have 22 people total in the office, 8 total prosecutors. According to the state, who pays the positions for the state prosecutors, we're down 2.5 prosecutors than what we should have. Currently, if on the next budget cycle they gave St. Croix County another prosecutor or 2 or 2.5, we have nowhere to put another prosecutor. We have no more offices. We currently have one part-time staff member in it's basically a hallway with file cabinets with a desk at the end of it. So we've exhausted our space, and actually our space has been exhausted for about over 10 years. Over 10 years ago, about a quarter of our office had to move down to the first floor. That's victim witness, which is very inconvenient for victims who come and meet with victim witness downstairs. By statute, we have to have a safe, comfortable place for victims to, wait to testify. But then they come upstairs to testify. So a lot of times they end up hanging out in the hallway waiting for court because it'd take too long to come up from the upstairs. So we're excited about the possibility of getting all of our office back in one space again and having room to grow, because we already are short-staffed and we have nowhere to put additional staff. As the population grows, crimes increase proportionately, and we need the staff to be able to keep on top of it.
We talked a little bit earlier about the change in the judiciary, the fact that we went from 2 judges to 4, plus we have 2 court commissioners using 5 courtrooms, and so expanding the number of courtrooms. And you just mentioned about the prosecutors. Do you remember your predecessor, Rick Johnson, would have been involved with the building of the current government center back in 1993? Do you recall how many assistant prosecutors there were then?
I think when he started, there was only 3. So or there may have been 4. We basically more than doubled since he started. And you mentioned the courts. Another thing, the judges are also paid by the state, and they're allocated the number of courtrooms by the state legislature. Same thing with the courts. If they allocated another judge on the next budget, there's no courtroom to put another judge. So we'd miss out. They'd give it to another county, I would expect. So it's also essential to have, the space so that when we get new prosecutors, new judges, we have somewhere to put them.
Yep. And you said that would be on the 2nd floor with this expansion then?
I think the actual spacing, I think Ken can confirm this, but the actual location of all the offices isn't nailed down yet. There's been the space study that shows how much space is needed for each department based on the various space studies that were done. But I think just based on the building, some of those courtrooms would have to go downstairs on the first floor.
Right. So courtrooms might be on both floors. Offices might be all together though.
Right.
Okay. Then moving on to law enforcement, because I know that we've had certainly expansion of the jail. I remember back when the jail used to be in this parking lot here where the Bethel Lutheran Church's parking lot is now. And so we've grown as the county has grown. We've needed more beds. How is this expansion going to affect your department, Sheriff?
Well, it's going to actually impact our operations in several different areas. Because of growth that we've seen in the county, calls for service, each one of those things carries with it investigation or evidence, whether that be vehicles, whether that be other forms of evidence. And our storage space right now for those evidentiary items we're at full capacity there. Some found property is stored in other areas, not necessarily in the evidence room. So we've had to mix and match areas. And that's really just the evidence room. Our other areas with staffing, we also are filled with offices. Our patrol squad room is a shared working space for our patrol deputies. Now, through the years, we've added 2 satellite offices for just doing reports, but our main, obviously, hub is here in Hudson. So we still want to give them an area to get their reports done and again, process evidence. That's the other thing with evidence is not only the storage of it, but processing it as well, storing it before processing. There's evidence lockers that have become, it's a small area right now. And as was mentioned earlier, our facilities department has done a very good job of trying to get us into areas, maybe combining some work spaces, our office staff out front. We've removed some walls and made more of an open area. Again, we're doing our very best to mix and match with what we have for space. But part of this, even as we started to discuss addition two, and I remember Dennis Hillstead, sheriff back, he was sheriff until 2010. I remember discussing and filling out forms of space needs 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And, you know, at the time we thought, well, that's a ways away. And all of a sudden we're there, and actually we're past some of those. And the discussion has always been, what kind of resources can we combine as we move forward? Is it just our office, or is there another entity that we could involve? And there had been discussions in the past of Hudson Police Department maybe being a part of this expansion.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because that was going to be my next question. So great segue there, Sheriff. Why would Hudson want to do that possibly, and why would you want to combine?
Well, as I understand, Hudson is also looking for expansion, looking for additions. And as we began to talk, really the common sense thing, and I think a good idea for resources that go along with resources is funding and taxpayer dollars, is instead of building two expansion areas, that we combine, that we bring Hudson PD into our level for the sheriff's office, and utilize and combine some of the evidence room, the processing room, training rooms, workout rooms, records management, the paper, the files. And part of all this process, we've toured several other counties that have a combined police sheriff offices. Eau Claire, for instance, their evidence property room is managed by one person. They take care of both sides. Now, Hudson has somebody that takes care of theirs. We have somebody that takes care of ours. And it started to make sense of, let's build for the future, but also combine our resources. It'll help in several areas. Again, in items such as equipment and storage, but also information exchange. You know, we can have meetings and trainings where we can, instead of a trainer coming in training two departments in different areas, we utilize one area, and then everybody gets that same or similar training. And when we just talk about evidence, really the not only storage, and it's not just a turnstile evidence, there's some evidence that based upon the severity of the crime, it could be a sex assault, it could be a homicide, there's items of evidentiary value that we have to hold for 40 plus years. And keeping those things, and some of those evidence items are biological. They need to be frozen. So there's a lot of things that I think we can combine with our resources, also following statutes, falling within those limits, and really combining resources with another local entity to serve the citizens in the best way possible.
Well, I remember a long time ago, more than 31 years ago, being a prosecutor in Eau Claire. You mentioned Eau Claire as an example, and it was very convenient and advantageous to have on one floor the police department for the city of Eau Claire, and then another floor the sheriff's department for the county, right there where you could go down and meet with them and discuss cases and so forth. How is that going to work with Hudson? Do they have to have a formal approval, because you're dealing with two different government entities, and it would actually entail moving of the Hudson Police Department? So kind of a chicken and egg question, which comes first, the county approval or the city approval?
I can field this one. I think it's going to be the county approval first. So if the county board determines that this project is going to move forward, then the city of Hudson would have a timeline where they would have to sign on that they would like to join in the project with us.
But I imagine the subject's been floated. So how has that been received so far by your cohort on the Hudson Police Department, Sheriff?
Actually, very well. Through the years, you know, we continue being based in Hudson. There's always been even our mutual aid agreements with Hudson. This was put on by Sheriff Ralph Bader and Chief Dick Trendy back when we kicked off the building. They had to come into an understanding of who handles the parking lot if there's an offense, who handles inside of the building. So there's always been that cooperative working. And I think this just seemed like a logical idea. So Chief Jeff Wellams and he's been on board with this as well. He's gone on some of those tours, either him or someone of his command staff when we've toured other facilities. So I think we're all on the same page. I'm actually excited about some of the possibilities.
So obviously, whether it's police department or the sheriff's department, you need secure facilities for holding cells, for a secure area where you transport prisoners into the facility. Is this expansion going to be affecting that part of it?
There will be an area that part of the expansion will be the Sally Port or entrance to the jail. But that does bring up something that I do also want to touch upon is that secure transport and transfer of inmates. As it is right now with the 4 courtrooms on the upper level and the commissioner's office, we have 1 elevator secure from the jail. So right now when we have certain inmates in custody, we have to bring them out into the areas in the hallway, into the public section to move inmates around. That's also part of our discussions and our plan of really easy and safe transfer of those inmates within the building with this expansion in mind. Where do these other courtrooms go? Well, ideally, and I do remember, again, many years ago, that this building, to my understanding, was built one level to mirror the other with the thought of expansion of courtrooms on the main level as well. And with them branching off of that elevator in the center of the building to make that connection to the jail. So I think that's important as well, that we keep that in mind, and I know this planning does. But as far as working with Hudson and transferring of inmates within through the Sally Port and into the jail, it will touch on some of those areas that will improve our efficiencies.
Will the jail itself actually be expanded in this expansion?
Not the jail itself. There will be some ancillary spots, maybe the receiving area, the Sally Port area, which is the garage bringing in. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, the pod itself, that is not in this plan.
Now, but this expansion is being designed for maybe future expansion another 30 years down the road to either, or within that 30 years, like if the jail, I mean, again, it's just a matter of bed count and inmates and everything that require expansions, but will this facility be able to be expanded again if this gets approved here in 2021 or 22?
Yeah, we looked at all of the space needs around the county, and really our expansion plan is in 4 phases. The first phase, we're actually going to be under construction in 2022, and that's for a cold storage facility on the government campus site here for the sheriff and the facilities department. That's a major first step in this project because it provides a staging area for some of the other parts of the project. The second part is this big part that we're talking about now, which is the government center expansion for courtrooms and offices and affecting portions of the jail. The third phase, which is out in the future, we don't have a specific date for yet, but it's probably 5 years or more out, would be an expansion of the jail pod. And then a fourth phase would be expansion of the service center in New Richmond.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. So let's get to the big question I'm sure our taxpayers are curious about. What is the cost and how will it get paid?
Sure. Well, a project of this scope is a big dollar amount, but I think you have to put it into perspective of how it's being distributed and some of the good market conditions that we have right now. So we have historic low interest rates. So doing the project right now will save the taxpayers money rather than waiting a few years and then deciding to do the project because the interest rates are very, very low. Now they're at historic 30-year lows. So there's that benefit of doing the project now. The $87 million price tag that's on this project, though, can seem a little daunting. But when you put it into perspective that it's spread across the entire county, that number becomes much smaller. So that cost per equalized value, when you look at your taxes, is 40 cents per $1,000 of equalized value. So 40 cents for the county. We're at $3.11 right now for our tax bills that are coming out here in December. 2 years ago, our tax rate was at $3.51. So we're basically going backwards by 2 years on the tax rate. After 9 consecutive years of tax decreases, this project will cause a tax increase. But if we continue back on that trajectory of tax decreases, which we will because of the growth of the county, we'll be back down to the current tax rate we're at right now. The reason the county.
So 40 cents translated for, let's say, a $400,000 house, that means an annual increase in taxes of $160. That would be that taxpayer's contribution.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the initial increase. So the initial increase is $160, but then the tax rate will continue to go back down. So it won't be $160 every year for the next 20 years. It'll be $160 and then it'll be small. And the reason that decreases is because St. Croix County is adding more and more taxpayers every year. So the more people that are here to pay for the government center project, the less each person pays individually.
I don't want to get too far into the math details, but to give our viewers some sense, what is the taxable, property in the county, the value compared to, what it's been in the past, if you have some other figures to give some comparison to?
Yeah, I mean, the value of St. Croix County is over $12 billion. So you'd have to have $12 billion if you wanted to buy every property in St. Croix County. So that number is going up every single year. We've been averaging over 2% of net new construction every year. And that's just, the net new construction number is just new people coming into the county, which is very high. It's in the top 4 or 5 every year out of the entire state of Wisconsin. And then the equalized value of the county has been increasing roughly about 7 to 9% every year. And that's the value of the properties are increasing at a rapid rate also.
So the existing properties are increasing at that 7 to 9%, plus you have another 2% of brand new properties each year being added to that mix.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and that's why then the tax mill rate goes down, just to generate a similar amount of tax dollars.
Yep. Every time you get a new neighbor, there's somebody else to help share the cost of services.
All right, so what's the timeline for the expansion?
Well, the timeline would be, we're going to make a presentation on December 7th to the county board. After that, we're going to be taking some information to the administration committee to kick this project off in January. If they approve that, it'll go to county board for an approval. And then it's basically a 3-year process. So the first year, we would be working on the architectural design. So we'd be laying out all of the details of exactly where the district attorney's office is going to be. Is it going to be on the first floor or second floor? And talking about exactly how we transport prisoners from the jail to the courtrooms. So working out all of those fine details. The second year would be the construction would be the addition onto the building, which would be mostly on the south side of the building. That's where most of the construction addition is going to be. Currently within the same footprint of where the parking lot sits on that south side. And then the third year would be remodeling of the existing space, mostly on the first floor where all the offices are being moved out into that new area.
Okay. Well, that would be the timeline if it gets approved, and that's expected to be voted on sometime in the next month or two in January.
Yeah, I would say within the next few months, I would anticipate a vote by the county board of whether or not to fund the project or not.
And then actual shovels in the ground won't occur until the 2023.
2023 at the earliest, yeah.
Okay. So how can our, now I want to give our sheriff and our district attorney a chance. Is there anything else that we didn't touch upon that you wanted to make sure that we told our viewers about how this project is going to impact your services.
I think we pretty much covered it, at least from my perspective. Sheriff, if you had anything.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I think the combination of resources, information sharing, I think it's just a better service to the citizens. I'm really looking forward to the expansion. I will say that jumping back when I first started in the jail in the 96, 97, and this building was 3 years old, I would gladly do the tours of other counties coming to visit this new building. And we tour the courtrooms, and really the layout was really good. A lot of wonderful compliments. Since that time, Polk has built, Dunn has built. A couple other counties have built their government centers as well. And most, if not all of those in the surrounding area came here to see what St. Croix County had done. Now, our building is still in very good shape, but the truth of the matter is space needs have crunched us, but so
It's
thank
not a
you.
matter of the building falling down around you. It's just a matter of being able to expand it to be able to meet the service and the demand.
Yes, absolutely.
And there will be some, we didn't talk about this in detail, but just an acknowledgement that there's going to be savings and efficiencies, whether it's LED lighting, but the whole HVAC, everything being remodeled and updated with this expansion, there will be some operational savings.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be additional square footage. So obviously your heating and cooling costs are going to go up because of the additional square footage. But on a per square foot basis, the new equipment would be more efficient.
Yeah, all right. So how can our viewers learn more about the project, Ken?
Yeah, we have a couple of ways. We have another open house on December 8th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Government Center, where the team that you see here is going to be present, plus a few others, to answer questions that the public may have one-on-one if they're really interested and want to get into some of the details. We also have information on the county's website that you can go to and you can access. You can always reach out to our public information officer, Adam Kostanek, if you'd like to gather more information.
Thanks for mentioning Adam. I know he does a great job there in providing that, being able to give a human response, I guess, for those people that can't make that open house on December 8th. So I encourage our viewers to do that. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show. Thank you for the service that you do for our county, and hope you can be an individual guest someday so we can talk about how great the expanded facility is for St. Croix County.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.
You bet. And I want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. If you have questions, get out there and Google St. Croix County, Wisconsin, get on the website. You can get more of the details as this project progresses and follow it. And thank you for watching our show.